Here we go with head coach Chad Killinger from Indiana State on Nothing But Net. Coach, welcome back to the podcast. It's always great to see you.
You too. Been a while since this summer in Chicago.
I know. I remember sitting in the bleachers with you, and our discussion was all about analytics. I know that's an important part of how you evaluate and break down your team. Before we jump into anything else, let's just hit right at it. Analytics. Where is it in your whole scheme of planning?
Well, I think, for us, we obviously look at that, especially from a defensive standpoint, in terms of what we're trying to take away from an opponent, what their strengths are, how they defend ball screens, how they defend in the post, just things that we can take advantage of, from an offensive and defensive standpoint. I try not to give too much of that information to the players, just from the standpoint, I don't want them thinking too much about, I want them to go out there and just play and try to execute. So for us, it's more about, from a coaching standpoint, what we need to know in terms of the approach for that week and that set of opponents that we have. And, I heard a coach recently was talking about, having a one-day prep for games, especially in the Valley. You play Thursday, Saturday, you play Friday, Sunday. And so for us, looking at numbers can really help us. But I try to set it up to where we're really on one-day preps every game, so that when we structure our preparation, it's, like this week, we're off on Sunday. We play Evansville tomorrow night on a Wednesday. But yesterday on that Monday practice was really all about us. It was a little bit of things that they do. So we'll really use Tuesday as our full preparation day. And then obviously have I don't call them shoot arounds. I call them game preps, just to kind of change that mentality a little bit going into the game day. And so our preparation, I think, kind of stays the same. And I think that helps us, being able to adjust to one-day preps.
So I hear coaches all the time talk about, once you get into conference play, it's like a certain routine. You have you have to have a day off, you got a travel day, you got prep, you got practice, you got game. So there are times when you have more than one day to prep. And I think saying one day to prep means, to me, what were you doing in the summer with all the time that you had with your team? I mean, you go over ball screen defense, right? So you have certain concepts already in play. If you don't have those concepts in, and you're playing against a team that's an up the line pressure team, and you don't have your pressure package in to relieve pressure, then you're in trouble, right?
Right. Yes, for sure.
So explain to me, what's your process? There's so many different ways to do it. There's no right or wrong. It's what works for you and your team with your personnel. How does it work for you right now with your schedule?
Well, I think I agree with 100% with what you just said. We coming in new last year, there's only so much game film you're trying to implement a lot of what you're wanting to do. So you're not concentrating on as much on what other teams in the conference do. And so we actually put together, I put together over the summer, just a package of actions and sets and different things that teams did within the league and teams we knew we were going to play again. Started giving those names. So our girls know if we're running, if a team runs what we call Valpo, they know what that is and how to guard it. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't have to spend time guarding that this week. We should be able to say, hey, they'll run Valpo, put them in it, walk them through who's going to be in what spots, and they should be fine in terms of defending that. And so I think that's helped us a little bit this year, just in terms of that preparation. Obviously, having new teams in the Valley has changed that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's I think you have to be able to do what you do well more consistently than what you allow the other team to do well. And so, I'm a big proponent of players playing to their strengths, just in terms of within the offense. We haven't ran as much triangle probably this year as we did last year, because we weren't taking advantage of all the different options that we had. And so, I spoke to you, last year about how the offense changes just when you substitute. So if you got a kid that could shoot it off a ball screen, they're going to come off that little pinch action. Maybe they pop, they get a catch and a shoot three. Another kid is better at taking the ball to the basket. So they come off the handoff, they're attacking the rim. We weren't doing those things. We were kind of being robotic, and that's something that I think I battle and have seen coaches battle the last few years it's always about running the play, like run the play. And I think I might have said that one time to our team in the 2 years that we've been here. You've got to teach them how to play basketball, how to react to situations, and not be thinking so much on the floor. And so for us, we try to show them reads, and I get out there on the floor and play defense to just give them a read on, hey, you got to, you're coming off the ball screen, they're hedging it. This is what you're looking for. So I might hedge the ball screen or whatever it may be. And, we try to put them in situations where we're teaching them how to play so that when things happen within a game or someone changes, what they're doing defensively, we can adjust quicker to that.
So I think one of the greatest compliments that coaches can get is that of being called a teacher. And you have come across the game through lots of different avenues, which I find very interesting in your path, because you've coached at almost every level. I think you've coached at every level. If you consider, NAIA and junior college and men and women and high school and everything that you've done, when somebody calls you a teacher, or instead of saying that, let me ask you it this way. When you're trying to teach a group of 15 or 14 or 13 young women how to play in a certain scheme or play inside a certain shell of guidance that you've given them, because I know you don't like to recall a lot of plays, so you've given them sort of a shell and a framework to work in. What are the best teaching tools that you use to help your players understand what is the best way to score, or how we can get points, or how we can get a stop?
So I think a lot of what we do is break down stuff. So we basically show them pieces within the whole. So maybe that whole part whole type method, but really we try to break it down to where it's a lot of our shooting drills are shots that we feel like we should get within our offense. And so for some kids, it may be you come off this screen and you should be curling this because you're a good mid-range shooter. You come off this screen, you should be making a different read because you can shoot three. They're probably, however they may guard you. And we'll put them in situations where, we play smaller games, games within games, 2-on-2, 3-on-3. We try to make it to where they see different options and have to make reads and play off of that. And I think from an individual standpoint, I think that's the hardest thing for coaches. You used to just be able to go in and you could just chew everybody out and everybody took it, or you could go in, and pat everybody on the back and everybody was good with that. And now I feel like you have to coach, everybody almost personally. And that's probably the biggest adjustment that I've had to make over the years. This is my 27th year of college basketball. And so seen a lot of different things, a lot of different approaches, try to balance that with even the kids that, they'll tell you like, coach, you can get on me. I can take it. Like they have days where they can't, or they don't as well. So I think you really got to read that every day, kind of where your kids are and or where your young women are, how they feel, what they're thinking. We try to be as positive as possible. But I've told them too, I'm like, I can't come in and pat you on the back every day if you're not doing the work. Like if you're not doing, if you're not putting in extra time, you're not getting in extra shots. Your commitment level has to raise. And so I feel like, really breaking it down that way and trying to teach them their strengths. You go to like our game prep or our shoot arounds or even practice to start, and you go out there and your 6'3" post player grabs the ball off the rack, walks to the 3-point line, and the first shot's a 3. And you're like, that's not like, you're not going to shoot that in a game. So why would you shoot it?
Good shooter starting close, work their way out. Good shooter.
Right.
That's what I always thought. Even Steph Curry's doing form
and we
shooting.
know how many free throws you can make, and so it's interesting to kind of be in that basketball world now where that's kind of taken over. So I think it's really about adjusting to your personnel, from that teaching standpoint. And we watch film, even after a win, we'll watch film and I'll show them, the good things that we did and the things that maybe we didn't, once they weren't prepared for, but maybe we hadn't seen, that a team did to us, so that we can learn from that in that moment, so that if somebody else tries to do it, we can adjust and be prepared for that. And, we really try to break things down, as much as possible. And we celebrate everything. We celebrate, we have goals offensively, defensively for every game that are pretty consistent. And we have goals for individual players. It doesn't matter if you played 5 minutes or 25 minutes or 35 minutes. You have opportunities to achieve some things in that amount of time that we try to make sure we're making points to let them know when they're doing well.
I love film. I mean, to me, that's the fun part. Like, I love watching film. I like going in a film room with teams and listening to the coaches break down film. I like all of that stuff. So you've got some sort of formula that's working right now because you've won 2 in a row on the road in the Valley. So what does it take in general? What are the things that you think you have to be able to go on the road and win in this league?
Well, I go into those games just, it'll sound terrible, but just, you don't expect to win. Because you're on the road, and for whatever reason, you just really go into it, I think, almost more relaxed than you do at home. I think at home sometimes you can build up pressure on yourself, that we have to protect our home court. We have to do this, we have to do that. But I feel like the routine that we get into, just in terms of dinner, film, we give them their time. Like, I'm not one that tries to dictate all their time on the road. We encourage them not to lay in bed, obviously, when you've got a day in between games and you're traveling, or even like having the night game at UIC on Thursday night. So we went up Thursday night, practiced in their practice facility, went out, had a team dinner, got up the next morning, had breakfast, had our shoot around, did all that stuff. But I was like, don't lay in bed all day. But we really just give them their time. And obviously now with classes starting, they'll have some study hall and things like that some of them will have to take care of. We had a 3.57 fall GPA. So
Wow.
I don't know what study hall we need.
That's great.
Thank you. But then getting there early and getting out on the court and just getting shots up. And again, I think our approach is pretty simple. It's pretty easy routine to get into, but I think it changes based on when you can practice and what times are available when you go on the road. And our girls, they like to go the night before and practice in the facility if at all possible. That was one thing I asked them about, when I got the job. I try to let the players have input on as many things as they can. And so we have a leadership committee, and I set them down and I said, okay, when we start planning travel, you want to practice here and then go, on the road the night before and then just have the game prep on game day? Or they're like, no, we want to practice, if we can practice at the place the night before, let's do that.
You said leadership committee, is that like captains?
No, it's separate from captains. We didn't even vote on captains this year. I just wanted to see what they would do. And so we have our leadership committee. We have 4 kids on that. And those are kids that we just bring in, depending upon how things are going, or we may have like a family day event at one of our football games in the fall. So we'll talk to them about, hey, what kind of food do you guys want? What kind of games do you guys want? What time, do we need to be done with practice? We can get there. So we try to give them some input, on those kind of things. And then, because I think you want to not necessarily tailor things to your players, but at the same point, I think they feel better when they have input. And usually they don't just, those 4 don't just say, well, this is what we want to do. They'll talk to the team and in their group chat or whatever, group text or whatever, and kind of get input from them as well. But what I did with captains this year was we didn't even vote. I just wanted to see who would go out there the first game when they called for captains. And that's how we determined who our captains were this year.
Well, who was it? Who went out?
It was Deljanae and Maya Glenn.
Mm-hmm. That's the 2 that I would have guessed. That would have been your 2 leaders, that they set the tone on everything that you do. You said leadership committee. So one of the fun facts about you that I absolutely love is that your wife was a really good player at Indiana, and that you guys have 3 boys and 3 girls together. So you've got 6 kids. So when you talk about a leadership committee, when you go home, you got a lot of opinions, I'm sure, around the dinner table. What's that like?
Well, and it's gotten worse recently because our youngest son, Moses, he's starting to break down film and do things, watching different sports, and he'll throw facts at me. He's a lot like I was when I was growing up in his age. Like, I was grabbing the newspaper and soaking up as much information as I could in different sports and reading we went to the grocery store on Friday night, and my mom would be grocery shopping, and I was in the magazine section. I knew she wasn't going to buy the magazine, so I would go and try to read the whole Sports Illustrated before she got done grocery shopping. So and looking at numbers and all that. So he's kind of in that mode. Our middle son, Eli, is playing freshman basketball, and our oldest daughter, Josiah, is playing senior. She's a senior on the varsity basketball team now. And then I told our girls the other day, probably the biggest compliment I could give them. We got back from Valpo, and we're on the bus, and I go to the back, and I'm like, obviously proud of you guys for what you do from a basketball standpoint. But I was like, Noah, she made the 6th grade basketball team. And before this past summer, I would have never thought she would have any interest in playing basketball, but she came to our camp, and just the impact that the young women on our team had on her made her want to play.
That's great.
And so it's definitely an interesting dynamic to have. It's very busy. My wife is incredible. She one of my best friend's father from my best friend from high school's father passed away last week. And so on Sunday I went to his funeral, and his wife was like, "We see all the stuff you guys are doing. How do you do it?" And I just said, "Rachel, like, I don't take any credit for keeping things in line at home. I try to keep them in line in the office and with our program, but she's a rock star when it comes to keeping us moving in a positive direction at home."
I'm sorry about the loss in your family, but so Chad, I want to ask you, like, the final thing is just, moving forward in the Valley. I mean, Indiana State used to be a Circle W. That's not the case anymore, right? You have changed the culture. You have put a team that's competitive on the floor that every coach in the league has to prepare for. It's not an easy win, and it's a win that you have to fight for to get. What would you say have been a couple of things that have been really important cornerstones in you turning the corner on this? And how are you measuring success? Because a lot of coaches measure it in a different way than just the W's when you're just early in your time at Indiana State. On the outside, people see your record. On the inside, that there are things that are brewing that are really positive and happening, that are heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I kind of stressed to our team was just I don't think there's a Circle W in the league anymore. I mean, it's night in, night out. You got to bring it and be your best. Obviously there's teams that are still playing at a higher level, a little more talent, whatever it may be in the league. But, I think the first thing for us was just starting to build like that family environment. I think our kids appreciate what our coaching staff tries to do for them every day. We let them know that we appreciate what they're doing. It's not easy. I think this is a difficult time to be a college student athlete. There's a lot of distractions with social media, and now you have this NIL stuff and a lot of things that a lot of people are trying to navigate. So we really try to stay grounded, just in terms of when we do have, this was the first weekend road sweep since 2017-18. So no one in our program, kids have been here for 4 years, had never experienced that. And so we celebrated it. We got ice cream. We did all those things that you try to do. But at the same time, I told them when we got back, I was like, you got another day to enjoy this. But, like on Monday, we got to get back to work. And so I think that, like, with the family atmosphere in terms of the culture was big. Them knowing that we all have open doors, they can come talk to us. And I think for every kid, it's a different coach. It's not always the head coach. And sometimes you don't want it to be the head coach. But they know that if they go and talk to an assistant and they need help with something, they're going to get that help as well. So I think just that was the beginning part of it. From a basketball standpoint, I think it was, really starting to develop a defensive mindset. Last year we were okay offensively and we were bad defensively. And then this year we've kind of flipped that. When we lost Natalia Lalic to the ACL in November, December, that really hurt. Just from the standpoint of took a shooter away from us. And we were really, I think, going to be a good offensive team with her out there and being able to stretch the floor and put kids in different positions. But I told, basically, I don't address injuries too much with the team and like, oh, we got to change this or that. But we really started focusing on the defensive end of the floor because I thought that was going to be what eventually was going to lead us to some success. And so I think from a defensive standpoint, I think they're finally, like, I think it took a year for us to really get that system in place and things we could do, and we've changed some things, and so they've bought into that. Playing defense, we got down 14-3 the other day at Valparaiso, and no one panicked. We went into the timeout, and I was like, they're on pace to score 112 points or something. It's crazy, or whatever it was. And I was like, they're not going to do that. And then we held them scoreless for 10 minutes. But that those things, that family culture, that defensive mindset. And then I think, we celebrate, like I said, we celebrate small things. We put together a competition team, our competition teams for our academics, because we ended up just a little bit lower than what I felt like we could have been last year academically. And so my idea was like, let's put them in groups of 3 or 4, give each coach 3 or 4 kids, and like, they're competitive, like they want to win. But I think building upon that competitiveness has been a big part of why we've had some success early.
Well, we wish you well moving forward through the rest of the league, Chad, and it was great to see you. And thank you so much for taking time to spend with us on Nothing But Net.
All right. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. See you down the road.
All right. Bye-bye.